Underneath the arches, we dream our dreams away. Underneath the arches.
Pip, pip, tally-ho, Joolz Guides here, in which I wander around London and tell you fascinating facts. And today we're in Waterloo, actually on Waterloo Bridge, the famous venue of the murder of Georgy Markov, the Bulgarian dissident. He was stabbed with a poisoned umbrella. The fella just said, "Excuse me," stabbed him with the umbrella, and then taxi, and just got out of here. By the way, I must just remind you, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and also if you like, you can hit the little bell if you want to be notified of when a video comes out. It reminds me of 28 Days Later, actually. You know, where Cillian Murphy wakes up in hospital. He walks across Westminster Bridge, and it's completely abandoned. And they must have filmed it at about 5 o'clock in the morning in the summer when it was completely. I think they closed it off. But it's a little bit like today when they closed it off for the. It's Women's Day today, and there are women with their tops off over there. So we better not film around here, otherwise we might get in trouble.
Every night you find us. Tired out of war.
It looks like they've cut that house in half, doesn't it? And I suppose when they built this road, they must have knocked down this house.
I've always loved that area of Waterloo, with the bridges, and you've got the... I love all that bit.
It's really nice.
Juxtaposition between industrial, old, Victorian and modern, you name it.
St John the Evangelist Church there, that's another one of these Waterloo churches, they call them. It's not called the Waterloo Church because it's in Waterloo, but they were built in order to commemorate the victory at Waterloo by the Duke of Wellington. And funnily enough, Waterloo Station over there, that's not actually called Waterloo Station after the Battle of Waterloo. It's actually named after Waterloo Bridge, because it used to be called Waterloo Bridge Station. And it's actually to commemorate the end of the First World War, because if you look on the side, it actually says 1914 to 1918. So a lot of people think that that's to commemorate Battle of Waterloo, but it isn't. And of course, it's where lovers meet, under the clock at Waterloo. This hospital over here is actually, I think it's a part of the student accommodation for one of the universities around here now. But it used to be the Royal Hospital for Children and Women. It closed down in around the 1970s because of this doctor called Dr. William Sargent, who was like practicing doing these really horrible experiments on depressed women, anorexic women, and he'd use like electroshock therapy, stick them in a room for 6 weeks. And I think there was quite a controversy over it. It was then said that people who are up to no good, like terrorists and stuff, used to reference some of his techniques, some of his books and things, in order to try and extract information from people. It was also suggested that maybe it was supported by the Ministry of Defence. So anyway, it'll close down, but it still looks rather beautiful. Yes. Unlike the rest of Waterloo, let's have a quick scan of it. I'm trying to cut out all these buildings, but it's just this roundabout is so horrific.
Happy when the daylight comes creeping, heralding the dawn, screaming when it's raining.
Round the back of Waterloo Station, and just off York Road here, is the Leek Street arches. The vaults down here actually used to store the dead bodies that were waiting to be taken via the Necropolis railway up to Brookwood Cemetery in the 19th century. Actually, I'll show you about that later, but this is really cool. People spend a long time doing their artwork down here, and then you might come back a few weeks later and it's all been painted over, and I think it was started by Banksy, I believe. Anyway, there was something called the Festival of Cans.
Today we're doing a public event for International Women's Day. It's called Girls Can. So we've invited the public, and we've also got a group from Mind coming to do a workshop in a minute, and they're going to be adding things onto the mural to say what girls can do.
And no police are going to come down and sort of close you down, stop it. Anyone can come down here and
yeah,
do this,
this is a legal space. Okay. It's a community space.
A lot of this happens, people just end up painting over it. I was here yesterday filming some of the artwork, and there was a really nice picture of Caroline Flack here, who recently committed suicide. I've come down here today and it's completely disappeared. Pretty decent bits of artwork, and then they can just disappear overnight, be replaced by another one.
When it's fine, I hear the trains rattle by.
On the other end of the Leek Street tunnel, you come to Lower Marsh, which is named after the marshland that used to be around here. This whole area was marshland back in the Middle Ages. But also Lambeth, because we're in Lambeth at the moment, the borough of Lambeth, that comes from Lambehitha. In 1062, they recorded this area as Lambehitha, which is where the lambs were brought ashore. And just behind me there, this rather derelict-looking bridge, and so it all looks very industrial now, but that actually used to be the Canterbury Music Hall, one of the most, they call it the father of the music halls. Charlie Chaplin's dad performed there. Along this parade of houses here, these shops, there used to be also one there. This one was one of the first purpose-built ones, 700-seater behind a tavern. And now it's completely gone, bombed by the Germans in 1942. Actually, the whole area was bombed, which caused this place to be closed down. Now, this building here used to be where the Necropolis railway would take you up to Brookwood Cemetery. I think if you were going to a funeral, you would start it here, you would enter here, buy your ticket and go up to the funeral. They had a special lift to take your coffin up to the platform, and then you'll take your place on the death train. Because the whole of London was filling up, graves were getting too full, and sometimes even they would dig up the old corpses and throw them into the river there, causing cholera outbreaks and epidemics and things like that. It was really grim. So in 1852 they created a whole city for the dead outside London, at Brookwood, which was intended to inter all of London's dead. The service only ran if there was a first-class burial that day. A second class meant that you would have to pay extra if you wanted a permanent memorial on your tomb, and if you didn't pay extra, they would reuse your grave. But since priority was given to the first and second class burials, the corpses of paupers were piling up, and they had to store them in those arches that we just came through. We don't need to go up there, but that's the Lincoln Chapel, it's called. It's in memory of Abraham Lincoln. It was opened in 1876. That's why you've got on the spire, you probably can't see from here, but there's actually stars and stripes on the church steeple. Steeple or spire? What is it? Yeah. Spire or steeple? Just opposite Lambeth North Station. I go in there sometimes, the Duke of Sussex. And on one side of the street sign, of the pub sign, they've got the Duke of Sussex that it's named after. And on the other side, they've got the current Duke of Sussex. Is he still the Duke of Sussex? Or he hasn't been stripped of his title, has he? Quite quiet, isn't it? It's quite for being so central. I don't know if that's because of the coronavirus, or as we say in Cockney rhyme, we sang the Miley Cyrus. Got a touch of the Mileys. This used to be a notoriously rough area, actually. This road that we've just walked up here, it's called the Cut. George Sala wrote in 1862, Twice Around the Clock, this was called, women appear there in their most unlovely aspect, brazen, slovenly, dishevelled, brawling, muddled with beer or fractious with gin. The howling of beaten children and kicked dogs, the fumes of the vilest tobacco, of stale corduroy suits, sounds like my school, and of unwashed, soddened, unkempt, reckless humanity. All these make the night hideous and the heart sick. The New Cut is one of the most unpleasant samples of London that you could offer to a foreigner.
Payment is my pillow, no matter where we stray.
It's rather sweet when they have these memorials to people who just have, ordinary jobs. Dave Squires, much loved street sweeper. Look at that, 1949 to 2009. Good for him. There's been a theatre there since 1818. It's called the Old Vic, simply because I think Queen Victoria was princess. She went there maybe once, I think, and they started calling it the Old Vic after Princess Victoria. In 1880, actually, it was acquired by a woman called Emma Cons, and she didn't like alcohol or Shakespeare, and so she started putting on things like lectures there, and I don't think it did all that well at the time, but it did actually have a positive effect in the end, because I think the lectures then ended up turning into Morley College. So I think that's what led to the founding of Morley College, which is just back up there near the Lincoln Chapel. From about 2003 till 2015, Kevin Spacey was the artistic director here. I went in there once. I saw A Flea in Her Ear with my dad. It was really good. It's the only time I've ever been there. And just opposite the Old Vic is this rather lovely fire station, which is actually now a bar. And I've been in there, and it's quite good.
We dream our dreams away underneath the arches, on cobblestones we lay.
Look at these lovely houses as well.
Well, these houses, that's Roupell Street. So it's named after John Roupell, who was like a scrap metal merchant. He built all these in the 1820s. He was a property developer as well. Originally workers' cottages built on marshland. And all the streets around here are actually named after his members of his family. They changed that. So the only one that remains is Roupell Street after John Roupell. But Mr. Selfridge was filmed down here, a lot of Doctor Who, stuff like that. And my favourite bit about the street is actually that old Citroen there. I love that. My Uncle Beppet's got one of those. Underneath the arches, on cobblestones we lay. I do like that pub, the King's Arms, really nice. Retains its old feeling. I haven't ruined it and turned it into some modern place yet. Actually, in 1829, they had a fire and they nearly lost them all, but luckily they managed to put it out in time. I'm just trying to see if they've got any of those fire insurance plaques, because they would have put... Oh, there's one over here, look, excellent. Ha-ha. See, this is a very Joolz Guides thing. So after they had that fire, obviously they thought, well, we need to make sure we have some fire insurance. So people would put up these things, and actually if the firemen came, they would only put out the fires of the houses that actually had one of those. It's a bit mean, really. So if you didn't have one of those, they're like, well, no, you're not insured by us. Look, there's another one next door. This blue plaque on the wall behind me is about Philip Astley, who had the first... He sort of invented the circus as we know it, really. First he started doing tricks on horses in a place called Halfpenny Hatch, just by here. But then by 1770 he was hiring jugglers, acrobats, clowns, and even animals, I think, to create what we now know as the circus. He's the guy who first sent the clowns in. And just around the corner from Roupell Street, just underneath these railway arches, it's so cool. They've utilised a lot of these railway arches now. But there's all these places to eat and nice bars and stuff.
Happy when the daylight.
I approve. I like what they've done with the place.
Heralding the dawn.
So if you follow the kind of railway track, the arches, it brings you here underneath what used to be the entrance to Blackfriars Station, I think. And actually here you can see some shrapnel from the bombs in the war there on the sides. But anyway, here just opposite Southwark Station is, well, that's now called the Palestra. Back in the 18th century, this was Rowland Hill's chapel, a round church, so that the devil couldn't hide in the corners. Then later on, I think in 1910, it was bought by Dick Burge, who was a former British middleweight champion, and he turned it into a boxing arena. And Bella Burge, his wife, became quite a famous character in the area. She popularised women going to the boxing. Before then, women never used to go to the boxing, but she used to come down here with her famous actress friends. Yeah, I think she was on This Is Your Life, actually, Bella Burge. There's a mosaic of her on the ground near where they do all the skateboarding on the South Bank. Just opposite, actually, they used to have a gym up in this pub here, which is called The Ring. And there was a gym on the top floor. It's no longer there. They've moved the gym down to a street under the arches over there, around the corner. But
I read in the pub that it was the first boxing arena for the working class.
Eventually it got bombed during the war, like everything around here. Then they rebuilt this, and they call it the Palestra. Palestra means in Greek the wrestling arena, which is now the Transport for London headquarters. So when the taxi drivers get very angry about something and want to block up the roads, they all just pile along here and just park their cabs and block off the streets of Blackfriars Bridge. And just underneath it actually is this wonderful sculpture of a dog licking a bowl. So originally it was a sign on top of a blacksmith's shop. See, Charles Dickens talks about it. He says that on my usual way home was over Blackfriars Bridge and down that turning in the Blackfriars Road, which has Rowland Hill's chapel on one side and the likeness of a golden dog licking a golden pot over a shop door on the other. So this was over a shop door which would have been a blacksmith's. And blacksmiths used to make things called fire dogs, which were actually, I think they were used inside fireplaces. On the ground, I don't know if you can see it, cut to a non-rainy day, you can actually see what the sign used to look like on this coal hole. I know that his dad was in Marshalsea prison, and when you were in Marshalsea prison, you actually, the debtor's prison, your whole family could stay in the prison. So I wonder if he was referring to his job, because I know that he worked when he was young. He worked in a shoe blacking factory down near Hungerford Bridge, near Charing Cross Station. And so, I mean, realistically, he could have walked back this way, I suppose, and over the bridge there, and then on his way back to Marshalsea prison. But he lived in so many places in London that it could have been. There's about 1 million blue plaques for him all over the place. Anyway, I like to think it was then, but I don't know he doesn't say what year that was. Yes, this street over here, by the way, Dolman Street, is significant for two things. Well, first of all, that's where Mary Shelley's mother used to live, in that house over there. Right teacher and champion of women's rights. The other thing that this street is famous for, who knows, it may have been underneath these very arches that James Pratt, John Smith and William Bonhill were arrested for sodomy. I think it was in one of those houses actually, maybe not underneath this very arch. One of them, William Bonhill, he was transported to Australia, but James Pratt and John Smith were both executed. I guess around 1835, 1836, and they were the last men to be executed in this country for sodomy. It says in this article they left the dock in tears. I'm not surprised. It's been pretty harsh times, those.
Sleeping when it's raining and sleeping when it's fine. I hear the
Just over there in Southwark Street is one of my favourite museums, the Kirkaldy Testing Museum, but it's weather's closing in, so I'm going to leave this one to vintage Joolz.
But 2 and 1 make 3.
Now, if you happen to be in Southwark, just behind the Tate Modern Art Gallery is this extraordinarily odd museum. Hello.
David Kirkaldy was a pioneer of testing standards in the 1800s. This is Kirkaldy's main machine. It's one of the first of its kind.
After the Industrial Revolution, they stopped making bridges out of cast iron. They needed more modern materials like steel. And so David Kirkaldy invented this massive machine here to test how strong it all was.
We can't do anything to the floors, we can't do anything to the shelving around and about, because it's all part of the machine.
What's your head? This is Victorian engineering. Victorians were short. So this is the return weight for the machine upstairs. You can see the whole thing is integral with the building. The machine is just sitting on brick columns and wooden blocks. Well, that's what we'll be testing. Grills that used to be out in the pavement with 1874 wrought iron in them. So if you could just open the air valve. Water pressure is applied in here. It pushes the piston out. Grab the handle. Don't be such a wolf. Well, I didn't know you were over there, Jake.
Damn it, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a scientist.
We're open the first Sunday of every month and by arrangement.
Take the strain. I can't see the power cut.
Right. So let's measure the load. So this multiplied by the weight on here is exactly the load that's on the specimen, which is about 15 tonnes.
We've been doing original research on how much a rope is weakened by putting a knot in it.
Wow, these are the original recordings of stuff that's been broken. Signed, David Kirkaldy. I wonder if they can test how strong my umbrella is. Not very. Just turned off Union Street and down Pepper Street, simply because it's a little bit more pleasant. And look at this, Copperfield Street.
Every night you find us, tired out of war, happy when the daylight comes.
Just at the end of Copperfield Street here, just near Doyce Street, there's this rather excellent sign. Commit no nuisance, Simon. That means don't piss against the wall, basically. A good place to finish is this pub over here, the Lord Clyde, because it's just a nice old pubby type pub. I don't know how to describe them really, but I love those pubs that have like a carpet and just look like old school pubs.
Imagine in the 70s, like, you know, you had everybody after work coming in here, really crammed in here, all smoking. Yeah. You know, really thick with smoke. How low? Goes another one, Jack. You know, just the. Oh, just amazing.
Yeah, you get
a big fat TV on the wall, you know, showing the snooker or something like that.
Cliff Thorburn versus Terry Griffiths.
Oh, boy.
Cheers, Simon. Cheers, everybody. Thanks, and yes, don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to be notified about any new videos coming out, you can hit the little bell notification, and yeah, or head over to my website if you want to get in touch, joolzguides.com, where you can find out more about me and a whole bunch of other stuff. But above all, don't forget to watch all my other videos. I've got lots of other ones about London. See you next time.
We dream